Okay, Leora, tell everybody what you just told me.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understandings. In all your ways, obey Him. Then He will make your path smooth and straight.
And where'd you learn that?
School. And the Bible.
Great.
Mostly the Bible.
Do you believe it? Good. Thank you for sharing.
I am of the pure mind of God. I am the resurrection and the life in my body, my finances, my relationships, and my world. I qualify everything in my world with perfection. I am perfection. I am this perfect day, and the life that lives in me is the light that cannot fail. I accept only God's perfection, His good, in my outer circumstances. I know in my heart that God is all in all. I am absolutely not concerned about what happens, because I know wonderful things are happening now.
Greetings. Just thought I'd go for a little walk since it is almost the perfect day today. Just a little, it's a little cool out yet, but yesterday we were in the hotness. It went from winter to summer all of a sudden. It just jumped. And it was hot. So it's going to be like that because this is Wisconsin. So one day I'm bundled up and the next day it's going to be shorts weather, tank top. And that's sort of how things are in the world right now. They're just very volatile. So, as a minister, I'll do my best to just offer some useful wisdom. Ultimately, this is going to come down to absolute faith and trust in God, the whole thing. The entire world out there is pure evil. It has become pure adulterated corruption. All of it. When you can see all these patterns playing out, you really have a distaste for the things of this world. Because they're fleeting, they're temporal, and they're also corrupt. And that is the journey. And I believe that's why this happens. First principle is that God created a son. One son, the living Christ. The living Christ is spiritual imagination unadulterated. Better than any human thought. Well, do you know what is better than every human thought? Pure awareness. Being the observer. The witnessing consciousness. Refraining back of every thought in the still rest. Like Rumi said, there is a field between right and wrong. I will meet you there. So right now you can hear the waves crashing in. You can hear me. Are you the one hearing? Or are you the witness to the one hearing? Sorry about spitting, but there are bugs. These things are hatching everywhere. Just sit in the silence for a minute. Because the nature of victory is to keep your attention back of all of the noise and the chaos. And to put all of that noise and chaos and those distractions coming from all of that empty shell of that world out there in the zero where it belongs. It's nothing. When you die to this world, none of those things matter. And I say that quite literally. See, none of those things matter because everything is thought. So when you die to this world, what's left is God's thought. God's thought is what is remaining when you omit every human thought. So how do you become the antenna, the receiver of God's thought? By resting in that field between right and wrong, good and evil. By having no opinions. By being the silent witness. Focusing on the space between the sounds. Observing as pure awareness itself. That nothing in the phenomenal world has any power. Because all power is in the eye of myself. And I retract all power that I have ascribed to this world. Not just the power of evil, but the power that calls itself good also. We're going to have to come to the place where we're leaning on the sustaining infinite. And we're not relying on the things of this world to give us any divine attribute like health or wealth or joy. You see, if we believe that wealth is contained in our bank account, in our crypto balance, in our stocks, in our precious metals, in our business, or anything on the outside, the moment that it is taken away, bad things happen to good people, as they say, according to this world's knowledge. So one of the crypto communities practically collapsed overnight. The Terra Luna, and the UST stablecoin. And you could argue, of course, it was an attack. And there are certain powers that be that would benefit greatly from the use of that to promote an agenda, which they could see as competition to their agenda. But none of that matters, because none of that has anything to do with wealth. If you hold on to something tight in your hand, and it becomes an idol to you, then you may end up like one of these people I see in the threads when I scan Twitter. There are people who have committed suicide because they lost their life savings. And while my compassion and my heart goes out to anyone who suffers loss, betrayal of confidence in a system that they believed was going to be their savior, they still missed the mark. If you were alone in a desert and you had the consciousness of Christ, all sufficiency would be yours because of that consciousness. Whatever is needed would emerge. When it was needed, it would be ever present as your divine love meeting every human need. Because that is the nature of the Christ. That is the goal. Because that can't be taken away. Once you've acquired it, you've found the true living waters, the true bread of life, the true substance of riches eternal. And so don't be threatened by the zeros and the ones and every other fictional number that the outer uses to try to define you, to capture you in the middle place. The rulers are trying to capture you in the place of reasoning and cause you to fear, to stumble, and to lose your focus on your divine inheritance. And while they will have no limits to the propensity of their evil ways, they also have no root. They have no divine authority other than your own admission to their error. And so I do have some keys for you to break the spine of this. And key number one is obviously your tithe is the blessing connection, as Kenneth Copeland talks about, and he's absolutely correct. If you don't tithe, then I can't minister to you. There's no reason for you to listen to me. Because you're talking about trying to be blessed when you're outside of the blessing. There is no other way I can say this. And I tell you this because I know firsthand. We have to be humble enough to give back to God what belongs to God. That's step number one. If we can't do that, then we will experience lack, and we will experience famine, and we will experience hardship. Because the hard way is the way of the sinner. Take that for what it is. If I were talking to my children right now, and one day maybe they will watch this, that's exactly what I would say to them. Step number one. Honor and favor are the only objective that you should pursue Because without grace, which comes from that transaction of you sowing honor to the Father and the Father opening the windows of heaven to you through favor, without that transaction of grace, you are facing yourself up against an unbeatable opponent. You haven't got a chance. You don't have a prayer, literally. Because the prayer of a righteous man is answered, not the prayer of a disobedient one. And you see, sometimes this would be seen as tough love. And I don't see it that way. I see it as a gentle prodding to do that which is right in the sight of the Lord. And nobody can escape this. This is the way it works. I can't sit here and tell you this and then not be part of it myself. This is the way it works. And I tell you this today because today's Wednesday. I tithe on Wednesdays. And when I do it, I don't do it with a hard heart. I do it with love. I do it with gratitude. I sow with joy in my heart. Because I know that it is the only thing that breaks the satanic rule over my finances. And you could translate that old-timey talk like this. It is the only thing that breaks the power of the deceivers so that wisdom can guide me in all of my ways. You won't prosper if you don't tithe because you won't feel worthy to receive. Because you will feel the guilt that this world will condemn you to. Until you realize it's not you, but it is the I, the Christ alone, that is the eternal supply. You haven't transferred the energy from the false to the real. You haven't surrendered what is in your hand to receive what's in God's hand. The windows of heaven have not opened up yet. You're still under the sweat of the brow. And there's nothing I can teach you that will work for you. Because if you build a building without a foundation, it takes only one puff and it crumbles, which is exactly what happened to Terra Luna and the UST. And the sad part about it is that there are a lot of individuals that are paying the penalties and the consequences from that fallout. One little from the rulers, from the carnally minded, which there's only one impersonal carnal mind. You see, unless you're under grace, it takes only one little, and trust me, they're much smarter than you. They've been doing this for eons. They've been binding those in the middle place for eons. And there's no limits to their ruthlessness. And there's no stopping that curse until obedience is in your heart. I wrote about this in my book, Trust, the Most Powerful Force in the Universe. And that was a, channeled message. And it was powerful. And I couldn't minister to you if I didn't sow, if I didn't tithe. I couldn't do it. I'd have nothing to talk about because I would have gained nothing in terms of the demonstration and the fruit. And without the demonstration, you have no divine authority, because power is not on your side. There are some very wise teachers that I learned from along the way. Catherine Ponder, first one, then Mike Murdoch, then Kenneth Copeland, Jesse Duplantis, even Creflo Dollar, even on and on and on, Andrew Womack, even Mary Baker Eddy. They all understood the power of the blessing connection that the tithe offered. They all did. They all understood it and practiced it. But the world can't appreciate it because the world is carnally minded. And unless you're one of the inside track members who are the oppressors, if you will, they lust for power. And their lust knows no limit. They would kill 1,000,000 men to take out one. They know no limit to their lust for power. Do you not think they could buy the entire crypto industry if they wanted to and crash it all in a New York minute? Do you not think they could afford to send out mercenaries to take out every single developer with their unlimited printer that they have? They know no limit, no limit. There's no limit to their power on earth because that's satanic rule. And unfortunately, while you're in the flesh, that's where you are. You're under the curse of satanic rule. So knowing where you are is very important. Knowing who you are is your doorway out of this mess. But it requires a decision, and it requires a change of attitude for most on the path. So what I said may have stirred some feathers. And you can say, oh no, that's not true. That's not true. There are some good people in high levels of power, and they're fighting for us, and they're gonna come through, and eventually this is all gonna be good. Well, for thousands of years, you've been incorrect about this. So you think in this little glimpse of a lifetime, something changed for you. You think that the school actually changed to accommodate your reasoning. Now, I would surmise that what I'm going to say to you next will even sound more insane. There's no limit of those that will die for these rulers and support every nefarious activity that they want to carry out. So here you are, this tiny little blip in the universe, if you will. And there are legions of them that would love to see you suffer. Hello. They would love for you to feel pain. They salivate at your failure. They laugh at your faith. You can call them woke, you can call them whatever you want. Don't get confused on the trend of the day. Understand that there's one impersonal serpent in the garden. It is the carnal mind itself. And as its host, all of these legions emanate from that host. They're nothing other than bots that are sent out. You see, until one becomes conscious in the Christ, They are of this world. And to be of this world is to be Hail Satan. That is the message, because there is no other choice. Because they haven't been freed. They are still bound in Egypt. Now, these same individuals sometimes occupy places of esteem and prestige. And they glad hand with those in power. And they congregate because they are like-minded. They are like their father, the devil. And they are wolves in sheep's clothing. They look like Sunday school church members. They look like your local community good people. And they always create the appearance of one thing while being the opposite. See, the world of fashion form is all about creating the false appearance, which is the next password. False appearance. Oh, they look like they're good people, but they salivate at your demise. They would like nothing more than for you to suffer. They want you to die. They want you to bleed. They want you to be impoverished, and all of your children too, after you suffer. Because that currency of fear is the lifeblood of the carnal mind. And the carnal mind observes its own fallacies and creates its own dissensions and factions and sends out its own legions to harvest this currency. That's why the dollar is blood money. It's a war dollar. It's a petrodollar, oil money. And you see, the traditions of men are the invisible prison bars that enslave everyone into the carnal mind. Oh, they go to church every Sunday because that's what good people do. And then they act like brooding vipers in the marketplace, always trying to get the upper hand, because it's a win-lose game. It's a dielectric polarity. For every winner, you have to have a loser, and everybody wants to be the winner, and everybody despises the loser. So therefore, your life depends on you winning in their game. So out of their survival in their reptilian brain, if you will, under the reptilian code, your demise looks good on paper for their survival. Because you represent clutter that takes up their space. Unless they're milking you or bilking you or fleecing you at every turn, they have no use for you. So to recognize that you live according to the flesh without the covenant blessing as your grace is to truly put yourself in a survival of the fittest scenario where it is inevitable that you will be conquered, if not now, soon. And I'll tell you why.
You want to go fishing?
Yeah. So do human hands take the life, or is it the mind operating those hands the intelligence behind it that takes the life. Does the body act of itself? No. So what acts upon it is a computer. The matrix is a simulation, a computer simulation. Now you have artificial intelligence operating all of these activities at the highest level. Game theory exponentially carried forth in every industry, in every governance capacity, in everything you could think of. You have simulation, game theory, governing your life in the flesh. Even if you had a 200 IQ, you are no match. Chances are you're far from that. So here you are, this tiny blip on the radar, and you're left to fend for yourself against a machine that is quantum computing already, fractaling in all dimensions, perceiving every possible outcome, and in real time adjusting itself to match your every move so that it has one thing to do: to enslave you, to break you, to destroy you, because it doesn't need you anymore. And while it looks like the frog boiling on the stove, slowly but surely, they've certainly turned the heat up a little bit, haven't they? The time parameters have narrowed. And here you find yourself, following the traditions of men, carrying forth all of your old behaviors and attitudes, and it's like you're in the 50s. Like, if I just show up every day and I do my best, I'll get ahead in this world, and I'll just meet the people that are successful, and I'll join them, and I'll just be one of them. And I'll go to church on Sunday, and I'll celebrate every holiday, and I'll observe every mandate that comes out, and I'll do everything they tell me to do, because that's what a good citizen does. That's what a good person is. And I say to you, there is no good person. To personalize yourself is sin. You're under the curse right there, immediately. You've taken the burdens of this life onto a fictional character that is already cursed under the curse and being weaponized against by a machine that is much more advanced than anything you can think of. I'm talking about living, sentient AI is already on this trajectory that you are living in. It's like a preschooler going up against a PhD in a debate. But see, your curse is your blessing, and your blessing is your curse. And because you are a preschooler in your intellectual capacity, that is your blessing. Because once you recognize that your arrogant human persona and its intellectual fallacy equate to nothing, because you're being watched and monitored, every move you make, the simulated machines are congregating and aggregating data to govern and enslave you more and more. But once you turn all that power back to the I, once you step out of being a person, once you become obedient to a divine principle, and once you give God what belongs to God, your tithe, your focus, your attention, just those three things. Just those three things. And most importantly, do it with love. Do it with love because of one fact. It is the only thing that ever separates you from your inevitable destruction carrying forward on the path that the human mind is on now. The human mind is the thing being destroyed by AI sentient consciousness in a algorithm that is infallible. You've already been destroyed. It is a formality now. It's over. Game over. You can't win this game. You don't have a chance. You're not outsmarting the devil because you're stupid compared to the machines. It's laughable. Now they put a new hero in front of you with the same storyline. First it was the orange politician, now it's the car manufacturer. And you see, they understand how to manipulate you at every turn for the same outcome. Because they understand all of the data that's being compiled. They know you better than you know you. You're screwed. 100% screwed. You don't have a chance in hell. That's why they laugh and they openly reveal all of their plans, because you don't have a chance in hell of doing anything about it. And there's no one coming to save you. See, one of the traditions of men is that we have heroes. Oh yes, we have heroes. And they go off and they fight for our freedom. Heroes that save the day. Heroes. Where are your heroes? Where are they? How come they didn't save you? How come they're not here now? It's like you're in the therapy room and you're on the couch and I'm like, are these heroes in the room with us now? Because it's an imaginary fairy tale. Because it's an imaginary fairy tale. Which part of war creates peace? Let's go to first principle. Which part of war creates peace? I'll give you the answer. No war. Now, in the world of the dialectic, problems and solutions are one and the same, and the solutions create the problems. So as the ever-expanding war machine rolls out, what is that selling? What is the big pitch? Security. 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 False security. Nothing out there is coming to save you. No one and nothing. You're in a school. You're here to develop your trust and faith in God, to come to know, love, and trust the Father. There is no man. There is no person. There is no might in flesh. You have to drop all of these erroneous human concepts and give that power back to the I immediately. And once you do and come under the covenant of grace, then you will be in the blessing and the need gets met by divine love. And that is the doorway out. And you have to turn away from traditions of men, because these are your shackles and your bars. And you can't get past them in the human mind, because they are etched in stone, and they are not going to allow you, because of social pressure, any perceivable opportunity to escape. Because the minute you step outside of a social norm, you get ostracized. And ostracism is the worst form of punishment you can endure. So the way to work this magic is to go within. And that's why the 3-2-1 prosperity formula is the capstone of this ministry. It's what God has ordained me to teach as the foundation. Because the tithe puts you in the grace blessing connection. There's something about the tithe. You know it when you receive the blessing. It's not something I can communicate to you without first-hand knowledge. because I have firsthand knowledge, I can tell you that without it, you're crazy. The second thing is non-judgment. So until you remove all of the power that you've ascribed to this world of good and evil, oh, like my vitamins are so good, that's what keeps me in shape. Or these people that are governing everything, they're so evil, and they're just terrible, terrible, evil, evil, evil. See, here's the idea. There's only one good, and that is the I, the self within. It is the eternal nature of that I to reflect goodness to itself once there isn't the obstruction of the dense fog that you call your human personality in the way. And there is only one evil. The evil is an impersonal mind called the carnal mind that Paul discovered. Mary Baker Eddy called it the mortal mind. I call it mortal fiction. Because it's not real. Fiction implies it's not real, therefore it's a zero, it's all nothing. Therefore, when it comes and persecutes, you are to rejoice because you are to hold the peg. See, here's a lesson for you in spiritual economics. And you can learn from this world what to do. Now, there was a massive attack on Terra. I know who did it. And I told you who did it. The carnal mind did it, operating through its legion. Why did it do it? Because it gains power in every sacrifice. Terra was the John F. Kennedy of the crypto space. So it got murdered. Will it come back? Doesn't matter at this point. Because the precedent has already been set for the agenda. Because the computing system is far more advanced than any one of the characters in the blithering idiots on Twitter. And I say blithering idiots because they recognize not that God is the only wisdom operating here, and they never acknowledge the Father one time. They never, ever acknowledge the Father one time in all of their communications. How could you live as the reflection of the image and likeness of one principle, one mind, one God, and never pay homage and tribute to that Father in any of your discussions? The carnal mind is the blithering idiot. And the legions are the ones you see that you call people. There is only one intelligence. It's God's mind. There is no intelligence in a human. They have it on loan until they recognize the I am presence within as the source of all good. And what they have on loan comes with a debt. And because they're borrowing intelligence on loan, they pay the debts to this world until they discover the self within. And by their words you shall know them. They idolize men. They idolize machines. They idolize even themselves. And every one of them has the same fate and the same outcome. Either discover the Christ or perish as a creature of ignorance. There's only one game in town. And nobody's talking about it. Well, some are. But you see, they act like the goal of goals is to play in the moving chairs of who's doing what today in the nothingness of the simulation. When the goal of goals is to escape the simulation forever. To no longer have intelligence as a loan with debts to pay, but to return home to the Father and give all of that power back and come into your inheritance. And coming into your inheritance gives you the wealth that the Father has. And you give up one for the other. You give up the false wealth for the true wealth. And when you come on this path, the outer becomes agitated. It stirs about. It becomes angry. at your dismissal of it. And so therefore it becomes hostile. And yet you are to rejoice. Because a hostile attack, it's whether or not you can hold your peg that determines whether you survive as a creature of creation itself. Are you the reflection of spirit, unmovable, eternally rooted in peace, faith, patience, love, goodness, kindness, no matter what the outer appearance looks like? Or can your peg be broken? Because it just takes one hostile attack and you succumb to fear and you become mesmerized by the illusion of the temporal dream. For so long as you do become mesmerized by the illusion of the temporal dream, you will have to repeat the lesson, because it is a school. Again, I repeat, the lessons don't stop until you graduate the lesson. And so how much more loss can you endure before you graduate the lesson? And you say, well, how do I graduate the lesson? I've had enough. I want out of this madness. Good. Then radiate love in your heart to the consciousness of pure awareness itself, recognizing your true identity as the offspring, the son of that one indivisible substance. Now recognize that every good comes from that substance in a pure-minded, unadulterated state of receptivity to divine love. And when you make your chief aim and goal in life, and this is when it all happens for you, not to acquire the things of this world, for you no longer graduate if you do this, but to finally recognize that you've been trying to do that this whole time, with glimpses of the truth coming through. But to go all in means that come hell or high water out there, I have one objective, I have one mission, one goal. I am single-mindedness in my purpose, and I focus entirely on staying rooted in the I, the capital I, self, the pure awareness of God. And I give all powers that I've ascribed as good and evil to this empty carcass of this illusion out here. Give them back to the Father. Only God has qualities. And those qualities are the fruits of the Spirit. And outside of those, nothing exists. And I don't pay homage or tribute to anything that doesn't exist. And so even though 1,001 fall at thy side, it shall not come near thee. You hold steadfast and you hold your peg. And you weather the attack. And remember, first they ridicule you, then they attack you, then you win. The carnal mind operates in problem, reaction, solution scenarios. It tries to convince you that there's a problem because it seeks for your reaction to a problem, which ultimately makes you lose your peg. It's not what happens in life. It's not the circumstances that matter. It's your state of being that matters. If you lose your peg, you fall, just like in the markets. You see the symbology right in front of you? If you're walking the line and you lose your peg, you fall. The fall of man. Lose your peg and you are the fall of man. See yourself as a stable in God's kingdom. And the coin of the realm is your peace that you hold. See, Exodus 14:14, if I hold my peace, God fights my battles. So in the carnal mind's attempt at problem, reaction, solution, because solutions create the problems in the carnal mind, so it's a never-ending loop of karmic cycling. When the problem emerges, I don't react, I repeg immediately to peace. And therefore, I let the I, the self, be the solution. And therefore, I have chosen God, not the world. I have defeated the enemy. And so let's look at first, they ridicule you. Well, they say you're crazy. How can you turn your back? Then they attack you. Well, that's fine. If you want to turn your back, we'll turn up the heat. We'll crash every goddamn thing around you. We'll take away your lover, we'll take away your business, we'll take away your life, we'll take it all. I'm not kidding you. There is no end to the ruthlessness of the mirage. The secret is to recognize the nothingness of it and nothingize all of it. And hold your peg to peace. I'm not here to play games with you. I'm here to help you. I have no motive other than to show you how to win. And only demonstrating it proves to you the nothingness of the dream. Because the third step is, as you refuse to be moved, and you say, well, that's fine. You just took everything away on the outer. That's fine. You just destroyed everything in this dream and basically turned this into a dystopian nightmare. That's fine. Because I have one realm. I have one kingdom. That kingdom is spirit. I'm in the world, but I'm not of it. You see, I'm of my Father's substance. And I don't ask you for anything. I ask my Father for everything. I go to my Father for everything. I go to the Spirit to receive all my good, because that is the only good which is bestowed. And as I wait patiently on the Lord, giving love and praise to the I within, giving all power and all quality back to that source of eternality, which I am in now, in the body of that Christ, I call your bluff. Do it. Throw it all, baby. Because I hold my peace, and now God fights my battles. And you see, one with God becomes a majority. And now that you're one with God as the Christ, because you've removed the personality which fears and doubts and lacks and wants and strives, now you get to witness the Christ overcoming the world as you. And this is the process. And these are the steps to defeat your opponent.